Doll Fairy. I'm back again this week with a video on BJD photography. A lot of people choose to get into the BJD hobby because they're already sort of into photography and they want something they can use to express their creativity in photography that's a little bit different than what they usually might use. That being said, a lot of people that collect BJDs are not necessarily photographers. They might be artists, or maybe this is their only creative outlet, and they might not have any background in photography. In this video, I'm not going to be covering the basics of photography. You can find a lot of tutorials online and in various forums that will show you the basics of photography and the basics of macro photography, which is photography for very small things, and specifically photography for miniatures. There's a ton of tutorials out there for you to find, so I'm going to be focusing only on BJD photography and some of the sort of aspects of it that a lot of people might wonder about. A lot of people think that you really need a good camera to take good photos, and specifically good doll photos. This is not the case, however. Whether you're using a cell phone camera or a little point and shoot or a DSLR, maybe one with specifically a macro lens, there is of course a difference in the specs of these cameras, and there are going to be some quality issues. But if you work hard at it, any doll photo can be a good doll photo, regardless of the camera equipment that you're using. The quality of the picture is not in how crisp the image is or how expensive your equipment is, but rather in the technique you use to set up the photo and the sort of know-how that goes into taking the photo. At a very basic level, the first thing you're going to want to make sure in your BJD photography is that the doll's face is lit. Unless you're going for a specific effect, you're going to want to make sure that the doll's face is sort of the brightest, or not brightest, but the visual focal point of the image. Or if you're not focusing on the doll's face, then whatever you are focusing on should be the visual focal point and shouldn't be like the dimmest thing. Something that I find useful in photographing my dolls is I take a lot of pictures and then I'll look at the pictures on my camera and I'll see what adjustments need to be made. Maybe there's a few flyaways in the wig. Maybe the pose doesn't look natural. Take a picture, look at it, correct things, and keep going ad nauseum until you get something that you like. Make sure that the environment you're photographing in isn't dusty or dirty or cluttered, because that can distract from the doll's beauty and basically take away from whatever effect you're going for in your photo. Make sure the photo's in focus as well. I can't tell you how many times I've seen doll photos that are blurry and out of focus, and after a while it just sort of gives you a headache looking at all these blurry photos. So make sure the photo is in focus. Now, if you're using a camera with sort of a small viewing screen and you can't really tell if the photo's blurry, well, that's the reason you take a ton of photos of pretty much the same thing over and over again. Because when you sort of have it enlarged on a computer monitor, you're going to see whether or not it's blurry. And sometimes it does turn out to be blurry, even though on the camera it looks perfectly crystal clear. You might also want to invest in photo editing software. Even something basic or something that comes with whatever kind of computer you're using, you're going to want to do some editing on the photo before you post it, whether to tweak the colors or to play with the focus a little more, white balance, stuff like that. Unless it's a sales photo, it's really fair game, whatever you want to edit in the photo. Whatever you think looks nice. And if you look at a ton of tutorials, you're going to find that you're going to gain some editing skills to make your photos look their best. One of my favorite elements of BJD photography is props. I'm obsessed with doll-sized props. A lot of people, however, don't really know where they can find doll-sized props. If you're looking at things that are made specifically for dolls, you might want to look at dollhouse miniatures and sort of things that are made for dollhouses. Usually they're around 1/8 to 1/12 scale. So they work with most tinies and maybe some YOSDs. You can find stuff like that online, in specific websites, or in various hobby and craft stores. If you're looking for stuff that's maybe not your average dollhouse miniature, you can also look on Etsy, where there's a ton of miniature artists, including ones that make teeny tiny doll scale food, which I think is kind of my new obsession. Outside of stuff that's specifically made for dolls, my major point of advice is always be scavenging. I probably annoy my friends and family a little because wherever we go, I'm like, is that a doll scale prop? Is that a doll scale prop? Basically, If you see something that looks like it could work for your dolls and it doesn't sort of break the bank, go for it. Sort of collect and hoard tiny pieces for whatever photography set you need. Fashion dolls have stuff that could maybe work for BJDs, including fashion doll-sized kitchens and fashion doll-sized room sets. Also look in various capsule machines. Depending on where you live, those little machines where you put in a coin and get a little capsule with a toy inside can have some pretty cool doll scale stuff that you could definitely use for BJD photography. You can also mix together hobbies. I'm sort of into figurine collecting, specifically anime figurines. I mean, I mostly buy them at cons, but I still buy them. And I noticed that my little Nendoroid Sakura from Cardcaptor Sakura had the little sort of wand, and it was perfectly in scale for some of my smaller dolls. So they sort of borrow it once in a while. If you've collected a ton of miniatures and you don't really know what to do with them, or you have a ton of miniatures and you want to put together something really impressive, you can try going for a full-scale room or diorama. Depending on the scale of your doll, it can kind of be challenging to put together a proper scale diorama. With tinies and OSDs, most of the time you can buy a dollhouse kit for the sort of background of the diorama, and then just sort of put together whatever furniture and props you've collected to make a really convincing little room for them. The bigger you go scale-wise, however, the more challenging it gets, and the more you might have to be crafty, which can be some people's forte or some people's bane of existence. If you're interested in making larger scale dioramas, like MSD or SD sized, I'd recommend sort of looking at a lot of do-it-yourself tutorials and learning to make some of this stuff yourself to save on costs. I'd especially recommend looking at others' dioramas to sort of see what they've put together that makes it really realistic and that you might not have thought of on your own. Which I'm not saying copy them, just sort of take inspiration, and if you do sort of copy something, give credit where credit's due. Probably my favorite maker of large-scale dioramas for their dolls is Nomi 800, who makes some really incredible SD-scaled dioramas and rooms for her dolls, and really she's just sort of my photography idol. Definitely check out her stuff because it looks so lifelike. All of her poses are natural, and the rooms look perfect for her dolls. Well, I hope this video has been helpful to you. Remember, photography resources are pretty much everywhere if you need any hints, or if you just need some pointers to improve your craft. Next week I'm going to be covering some little random pointers and frequently asked questions within the BJD hobby. If there's any questions you'd like to have answered in next week's video, you can drop me an ask on Tumblr, or you can leave a comment in the comment section here. If you like this video, remember to like and subscribe. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye!